Hi, everybody.
Hi, Cindy.
Good evening, everyone. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you miss the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page
No recap tonight. It's the blue page, which you will be reading, starting the new chapter.
Yes, thank you. Just said that. All right. And tonight's study will start on page 104, the beginning of the chapter, and end on page 105, Made Them Killjoys. Is there any announcements?
Hi, family. My name's Jamie. Very grateful recovered alcoholic. Just like to welcome anybody who's new with us tonight. I see a couple of new folks. We're glad to have you here. We had our group conscience last week or the week before. It was very good, very successful. On the 15th, 16th, and 17th, I will be taking this group's voice to Area 64 Assembly. So there will be details to follow afterwards. And our next group conscience, I think, will be coming just before our next group conscience will be, which will be in January. And that's all I have for announcements. And good evening, family. Again, my name's Jamie. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic, and welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. Let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Alyssa. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted, and sharing is to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And we will bring the monks in to do what the monks do so well. Enjoy your time with God, folks. And Doji's providing extra sound effects for the meditation in the background there. For those of you who wish, please join us in our family's fog light prayer on your screen. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
All right, let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Miss Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Shay to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Shay.
My name's Shayla. I'm an alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem with alcoholic sinners is in the mind rather than in the body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzers. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
I think we have one. Sabrina, welcome. We're glad to have you with us.
Welcome, Sabrina. And the recovered alcoholics? These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
They are, but they're not here tonight. Maybe later. We'll see.
Okay. If you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. And thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Shay, for your service tonight. It is greatly appreciated. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here. If you do not wish to do so, your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 2. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 3. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on in, Trish.
Hi, everybody. Oops. Hi, everybody. I'm Trish, and I am an alcoholic. I am your substitute traditionalist tonight. Okay, Tradition 3, the short form. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. In the long form, our membership ought to include all who suffer from alcoholism. Hence, we may refuse none who wish to recover. Nor ought an AA membership ever depend on money or conformity. Any 2 or 3 alcoholics gathered together for sobriety may call themselves an AA group, provided that, as a group, they have no other affiliation. So what does this mean? We have no membership rules. Someone is a member as long as he or she says they're a member. Our membership, though, should be limited to alcoholics, people who want to recover from alcoholism. We don't want to have a barrier between others in recovery and potential members. So no one has a bottom that's too high or too low to join. They're a member as long as they say so. We don't designate our groups as wet groups or dry groups or attach religious affiliations. We're just AA groups. And we offer all we have to those seeking recovery. We are Alcoholics Anonymous with no other rules for membership. This also tells me that I have no right to exclude anyone from being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. In Language of the Heart, Bill wrote, any alcoholic can be a member the moment he says so. Neither can any of us deprive him of his membership, no matter what his behavior. Every AA newcomer feels at once that he is wanted, trusted, and loved, and how well we understand these needs. I have been in groups where somebody's behavior was either very disruptive or sometimes threatening. Every time this has happened, that person was taken out into the hallway by some of the members, and a quiet conversation was held on how people are expected to behave in an AA meeting. And there were a time or two where that person was advised they could no longer return to that meeting if that behavior continued. We didn't remove them from AA membership. We just asked them not to return to this particular meeting as long as that behavior continued, for the safety of the members who were there. In this group, our meetings are open meetings. Anyone can attend. I have welcomed family members to these meetings, friends, and many students learning about alcoholism. While they're allowed to attend our meetings, and we're happy to help them and answer any questions they have, we don't allow them membership unless they are seeking recovery for themselves. So Tradition 3 tells me I have a place here where I belong as long as I want it, even at times when the rest of the world was not so accepting of me. So thanks for letting me be your traditionalist.
Thank you, Trish. Well done. And now it is time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Here's one of the things that we hear. Stay out of relationships for the first year. And Kenny is going to come in and tell us, I see people laughing, Kenny is going to come in and tell us what it has to say about that on page 69 of our Big Book.
Hey, hi, I'm Kenny. I'm a recovered alcoholic. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Thank you for your service.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight, we will be reading the blue page for our recap, followed by our study portion. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that will be read by
Larry.
Larry. Thank you. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer, split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the question gives us a new light in which to consider the studied material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the contents offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what we just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous: sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teachings and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
Thank you. And how we arrived at this point, this is a 94-week book study from beginning to end, folks. And tonight we are moving into week 63 and a new chapter. We didn't just wake up today and said, we're gonna read the chapter that everybody loves to hate tonight. So I thought you'd laugh at that, Trish. And when we get to the chapter, you'll understand why everybody loves to hate this chapter. It's one of the last lost chapters in our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. But this meeting started out right here in my living room with 12 other alcoholics. Of course, we had COVID, and we know how all of those things went. And here we are in Zoom almost 5 years later, and we study everything from the title page of the book, where we find the first promise, how the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism, through the preface, through the forewords, absolutely everything for the entire 94 weeks through this question and answer format. When we're done with the first 164, we spend almost 8 weeks on Dr. Bob's Nightmare, a couple of weeks on the traditions with the question format, and we go back to the spiritual experience on page, the spiritual experience on week 94 for the last time as a standalone meeting. We visit it 3 different times through the process of the book study, as we are directed to by the asterisks on the page. But we like to close it out with one final week of the spiritual experience, and then we circle back around and do it all over again. Here in just a few weeks, we will be celebrating our 5th anniversary as a Big Book study group, and in April we will be celebrating our 5th anniversary on Zoom. And what an amazing journey it has been. And I want to thank you all for your participation, because this group is about you guys and how we study the book and learn together. So thank you so much for coming faithfully every week. Thank you for bringing somebody new along with you. We are very grateful.
Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and our YouTube channel.
And let me get the blue page up for Pinky, folks. This is something that we have out of our study guide that you guys don't see in your big book, so don't bother looking for it. But Pinky is going to tell us a bit of how this study guide was created and a little more information about this chapter. Come on in, Pinky.
Thank you. So chapter 8, To the Wives, pages 104 through 121. Step 12 states, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. We have received the promise, the spiritual awakening. We have received clear-cut directions on sponsorship. Now, we will be given directions on how to apply these principles in all our affairs. Our founders reorganized that alcoholism is a family disease. Our founders recognized that alcoholism is a family disease, that all who care about this, a suffering alcoholic, also suffer. Oftentimes, their misery is even greater than that of the alcoholic. The alcoholic has a means of escape, but in most cases, the ones who love and care for the drinker must take it cold sober and experience much of what the alcoholic has missed while under the influence. This chapter will identify the problems the loved ones will experience as they continue life with the alcoholic. It provides a way in which to gauge where the drinker is in the progression of the disease. It then provides specific suggestions as to how one can go about trying to help the alcoholic begin to learn the truth. It then points out if the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous can bring about the miracle of sobriety with the attendant promises of the program, it can provide a path for their loved ones to find a spiritual way of life that will more than compensate them for the suffering and misery they have experienced. From this chapter came the wonderful program of Al-Anon Family Group. Without this program, many suffering alcoholics would never have found a solution to their alcoholism. Al-Anon is a great friend to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Well done. And folks, we need probably 5 or 6 hands for those of you who would like to be answer the questions tonight, please. That would be very helpful. Boy, look at all those volunteers. I like it. And Larry, come on in and read our study portion for us, please.
I'm Larry. To the Wives, Chapter 8. With few exceptions, our book thus far has spoken of men. But what we have said applies quite as much to women. Our activities in behalf of women who drink are on the increase. There is every evidence that women regain their health as readily as men if they try our suggestions. But for every man who drinks, others are involved. The wife who trembles in fear of the next debauch. The mother and father who sees their son wasting away. Among us are wives, relatives, and friends whose problem has been solved, as well as some who have not yet found a happy solution. We want the wives of Alcoholics Anonymous to address the wives of men who drink too much. What they say will apply to nearly everyone bound by ties of blood or affection to an alcoholic. As wives of Alcoholics Anonymous, we would like to feel that we understand as much you can. We want to analyze mistakes we have made. We want to leave you with the feeling that no situation is too difficult, too unhappiness, too great, to be overcome. We have traveled a rocky road. There is no mistake about it. We have had long rendezvous with hurt, pride, frustration, self-pity, misunderstanding, and fear. There are not pleasant companions. We have been driven to maudlin sympathy, to bitter resentment. Some of us veered from extreme to extreme, ever hoping that one day our loved ones would be themselves once more. Our loyalty and the desire that our husbands hold up their heads and be like other men have begotten all sorts of predicaments. We have been unselfish and self-sacrificing. We have told innumerable lies to protect our pride and our husbands' reputations. We have prayed, we have begged, we have been patient, we have struck out vicariously, we have run away, we have been hysterical, we have been terror-stricken, we have sought sympathy, we have had retaliatory love affairs with other men. Our homes have been battlegrounds many an evening. In the morning, we have kissed and made up. Our friends have counseled, shucking the men, and we have done so with finality, only to be back in a little while hoping, always hoping. Our men have sworn great solemn oaths that they were through drinking forever. We have believed them when no one else could or would. Then in days, weeks, or months, a fresh outburst. We seldom had friends at our homes, never knowing how or when the men of the house would appear. We would make few social engagements. We came to live almost alone. When we were invited out, our husbands sneaked so many drinks that they spoiled the occasion. If, on the other hand, they took nothing, their self-pity made them killjoys.
Thank you so much, Larry, for your service tonight. And folks, our batting order tonight will be Kenny, Lisa, Gandalf. The fireman is in the house tonight, Miss Linda and William. Good to see all of you. Grateful to have you here. Pinky will be coming in with 3 comments, and the first comment I should have let her read after the recap because that's where it fits. So I'm going to let her read that, and then she has 2 comments prior to opening up the questions part. So come on in, Alyssa.
Thank you, Jamie. Can you screen share it again? That first comment isn't online.
Oh, yes. My apologies.
You're good.
There you go. Can you see it? It's right here.
Yes. Attendant here means occurring with or as a result of something. Read
You
the
want me to
footnote.
read the other two up?
Read the footnote and realize this chapter is for any and every person who has an affection for an alcoholic, for all who suffer because of the drinker, and not wives only. Written in 1939, when there were few women in AA, this chapter assumes that the alcoholic in the home is likely to be the husband, but many of the suggestions given here may be adapted to the help person who lives with a woman alcoholic, whether she is still drinking or is recovering in AA. A further source of help is noted on page 121.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Like I said, folks, the chapter everybody loves to hate, and here we go. So, Kenny, the first question comes to you. What species of God's kids has this book referred to primarily?
With few exceptions, our book thus far has spoken of man.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, Gandalf, Rick, Linda, and William, you will all need to unmute, please.
Done.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Lisa, next question is coming to you. Who else will it apply to?
But what we have said applies quite as much to women.
Thank you very much. And Gandalf, my friend, are more women coming to AA?
Our activities in behalf of women who drink are on the increase.
Thank you. Fireman, good to see you, brother. Does AA work well for women as well as it does for men?
There's every evidence that women regain their health as readily as men if they try our suggestions.
Thank you very much. Miss Lisa, a two-part question. A, but for every drinking alcoholic, who else suffers? And B, who will you find in our midst? Those who love the alcoholic? Question mark.
Did you say Linda or Lisa?
I said Linda.
Okay. I pass because I'm already lost. Pass. Next person.
Okay, William, can you take that question? Would you like me to give it to you again?
But for every man who drinks, others are involved. The wife is trembling in fear of the next debacle.
Keep going. One more sentence.
The mother and the father who see their son wasting away.
Thank you very much. And Kenny, coming back to you, your question is, the wives, relatives, and friends of recovered alcoholics want to do what? 2 sentences, please.
Among us are wives, relatives, and friends whose problems have been solved, as well as some who have not yet found a happy solution. We want the wives of Alcoholics Anonymous to address the wives of the men who drink too much.
Thank you very much. And Lisa, who will this chapter apply to?
What they say will apply to nearly everyone bound by ties of blood or affection to an alcoholic.
Thank you. And Donald, as wives of recovered alcoholics, what do we want others to feel?
As wives of Alcoholics Anonymous, we would like you to feel that we understand as perhaps few can.
Thank you. And I apologize if you can hear somebody's car alarm going off, but it's not mine. And firemen, what do we want to do for others as a beginning point?
We want to analyze mistakes we have made.
Thank you. And Linda, what feeling do we want to leave you with as we study this chapter?
We want to leave you with the feeling that no situation is too difficult and no unhappiness too great to be overcome.
Thank you. And William, is this chapter based on our ideas and opinions or on experience?
Have traveled a rocky road. There is no mistake about that.
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to you, young man. What have we lived with? 2 sentences, please.
We have had no long
Rendezvous.
with hurt or pride, frustration, self-pity, misunderstanding, and fear. These are not pleasant companions.
Thank you. Lisa, to what 2 things have we been driven?
We have been driven to maudlin sympathy, to bitter resentment.
Thank you. And Donald, what is the everlasting hope of those who love the alcoholic?
Some of us have veered from extreme to extreme, ever hoping that one day our loved ones would be themselves once more.
Thank you. And Rick, where has our loyalty led us?
Our loyalty and the desire that our husbands hold up their heads and be like other men have begotten all sorts of predicaments.
Boy, howdy. Miss Linda, what are some of these predicaments and attitudes? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
We have been unselfish and self-sacrificing. Want me to go further?
Yeah, the entire paragraph.
Okay, we have told innumerable lies to protect our pride and our husbands' reputations. We have prayed, we have begged, we have been patient, we have struck out viciously, and we have run away. We have been hysterical, we have been terror-stricken, we have sought sympathy, we have had retaliatory love affairs with other men.
Thank you so much. And William, your question, sir. What have our homes been like?
Our homes have been like a battleground. Many in our old friends have counseled, chuckling.
Just our homes. Just
like a battleground.
Okay, thank you. Kenny, what happened the next morning?
In the morning, we have kissed and made up.
Thank you. Lisa, 2-part question. What have friends advised us to do? And B, what did we do with this advice?
Our friends have counseled chucking them in, and we have done so with finality, only to be back in a little while, hoping, always hoping.
Thank you. And Gandalf, what did our men do? What did we do? And then what did they do? 3 sentences, please.
Okay. Our men have sworn great solemn oaths that they were through drinking forever. We have believed them when no one else could or would. Then, in days, weeks, or months, a fresh outburst.
Thank you. And Rick, my friend, why did we not invite friends into our homes?
We seldom had friends at our homes, never knowing how or when the men of the house would appear.
Thank you so much. And Linda, why did we not invite friends into our homes? Nope, I'm sorry. Next question. I'm sorry. I got lost. How was our social life? 2 sentences, please.
Does it start with when?
No, it starts with we could make.
Sorry, we could what?
We
We
could
came
make.
to-
It'll be the next sentence. After we seldom, it would be we could make.
We could make few social engagements.
One more half sentence.
And we came to live almost alone.
Thank you. And William, you get the final question of the night. What would happen if we did go out? 2 sentences, please.
When we invited out food invited out. Our husband sneaked many drinks that they spoiled the occasion. If, on the other hand, they took nothing, their self-pity made them kill for.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You can drop your paws and remute yourselves, and the meeting is now open for sharing. I'd like to remind everybody that we have, by group conscience, instituted a timer so that we can be respectful and so that everyone can have an opportunity to share. So who's going to be first?
Good evening, everyone. Rick Alcoholic. Good to be here. Long weekend, long day, so I figured let me sit here with you guys tonight. Gets to meet up in the morning, not me. Swore off that I'll never drink again, not me. Killjoy, that was me. I knew my wife was unhappy. My friends, in particular my wife, was unhappy with my drinking. But one night, a quiet night at the late night at the firehouse, a buddy of mine, he sat down beside me, and my wife had run into him somewhere not long, a few days prior, and was telling him about my drinking. He knew about my drinking, but she told him how he felt. And I'll never forget sitting there listening to him on how dare she. How dare she, spread my mess like that. When I was doing a doggone, I was doing a doggone good job of that myself. I was going to go home in the morning and just get in her face, and my buddy telling me, hey, don't you go home and give her a hard time and all that. I said, what's it to you, man, I'm grateful that the next morning the department phone rang and they were offering me another 10 hours overtime at another station. I took it. I got home and I never, until this day, ever got in her face about that. I've told her that I know that she spoke with my buddy, and my buddy's still my buddy. I'm grateful she did that. I'm grateful he was there to listen to her, because I sure wasn't. The home was never a battleground, really. I'd come home drunk and go take a shower, get my recliner until bedtime, and she'd go sit and watch TVs. But for me, I know what I've done. To this day, I'm so grateful for this program now. I have a woman in my life. She's, I don't know, since 1978 we've been together. And my kids grew up into wonderful adults because of her. I give her all the credit. They give me some. I give it back to her. Just a little bit off topic. In Dr. Bob's story, he says us alcoholic men have a gift for picking out the world's finest woman, and I show her that on Mother's Day, the birthday, from time to time. Because no better Hallmark card out there that puts it from me to her. So, I don't know, I think I might have gone over my time.
Not yet.
I'm not a hater of this chapter anymore. That's a little different for me than what how this chapter reads. But I need this chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Glad to have you. I'm going to make a quick comment about the timer, folks. While we decided to institute a timer, it doesn't mean that you have to stop right at the 5-minute mark, but if you could certainly wind it up shortly afterwards, it will try and give everybody an opportunity to share. So, who's next? Because if not, guess what? I am not above calling on your name. Come on in, Lisa. Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, this chapter, I can see lived both sides of it. Rocky road, boy, that's an understatement. The long rendezvous with hurt pride, frustration, self-pity, misunderstanding, fear. No, they're not pleasant companions, but that was my life. For many, many years, I really related to that. I also, listening to this, thought of my parents, worrying about me. My kids, when I'd say I'd not drinking again, and then whether it was a week, a month, or 6 months, or a year, 2 years later, and I always picked up again. And I couldn't understand why. And, like I said, I lived with an alcoholic for many years. So, there were many battleground evenings. Not many. It's been so bad the past 10, 15 years. It's hard to even remember kissed and made up mornings. Thinking it was done, and the hoping and always hoping it'd be different. Swearing it was going to be different on both of our parts, and it just never was. It was always worse and worse. And not even through the drinking, our diseases, the spiritual malady of both of us, it was just fighting each other's spiritual malady. It's just horrible. But we couldn't see it. And I thank God this time around, I'm getting this. I'm starting to see this. And learning, I don't have to go to every fight I'm invited to, and, with the pause and different things. And, living alone with my daughter now, and I really, God intervened in my life. I honestly believe that. Put these things and people in my path to help me see, because I was blind with that spiritual malady, blinded by the fear, all of those behaviors. The blaming, the retaliation. Oh, it was horrible. And it's scary how how blinded I was. My thinking was so distorted from all of the crap, all of the emotional baggage through the years, and it changed my way of thinking. I couldn't see. And that's why, it's so important to have a sponsor that can help you see. I had to be willing. And I'm just so grateful this time that I was to open up, because I needed help seeing it. I couldn't understand. I needed to focus on myself. Because I was always focused on the other person too. And when I was talking about, it was a blessing that this person left. And I see that today. It really was, because I don't know if I could have focused on myself with all of, because I was just so focused on what he was doing. And some days, I get messages and it's very hard still, but I'm doing a lot better. And I'm just really grateful to be able to see today. And it's all to this meeting and the steps. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. So glad you are here, and thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. Who is next? I need to put a thing on here where it just kind of goes around the screens like Hollywood Squares and stops on one, and that's who I pick.
I'll go ahead and come in. I'm Trish, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Trish.
And, first, as we're proofreading, we're starting to put some definitions in. So when we got to the point about being driven to maudlin sympathy, to bitter resentment, I pulled out my big book dictionary and I looked it up. Maudlin is overly emotional and showing weak or excessive emotions or sentiment. And that was definitely me. I was an emotional roller coaster. And, like other people in this room, I've been on both sides of this. I've been the alcoholic and I've been the one living with the alcoholic. But definitely always on the emotional roller coaster, and thinking how well I thrived on that chaos, when the reality was I wasn't thriving in the chaos at all. I was isolating in that chaos. And I couldn't help but notice in the reading tonight, the long rendezvous with hurt, pride, frustration, self-pity, misunderstanding, and fear. And that reminds me a whole lot of those 10th and 11th step inventories at the end of the day, where I'm looking at myself. And, that hurt pride because that other person never did what I wanted. My family, while I was drinking, never did what I wanted. The frustration of trying to figure out a way to let them know what was going on, but not wanting them to be ashamed of me, which kept me from hiding, or kept me living in that secret for years. The self-pity because nobody loved me. And hence the emotional roller coaster. And, I was never willing to kiss and make up in the morning. I went to bed angry, I woke up angry and resentful, and I couldn't wait to go out and infect the rest of the world with that anger that I carried, because I was miserable and you were going to be miserable too. And then dragging into that drama anybody whose path I crossed. Do you know what they did to me? Do you know what he did? Do you know what they said? I was always dragging somebody else in because I wanted them to support me and tell me I was right in that stand that I had. I swore those oaths that I was never going to do it again. My fiance swore those oaths for a while that he wasn't going to do it. And then come the day when he came home and he looked at me and he said, I know you want me to stop drinking. I know you want me to stop doing these other things other than drinking, but I like myself better this way. I'm not gonna stop. And that's when I knew the end was over, or the end was near. That there was no way that relationship was ever going to go back to where it was. And I realized at that point that it wasn't him that I was in love with, but the fairy tale him that he used to be. But he had no intent on going back to who that person was. So during his drinking, during my drinking, there was never going out and engaging socially with anybody unless it was somebody who drank the same way I did. Unless it was somebody who lived the same drama that I did, because I didn't know how to sit back and relax and have a good time. I was always on edge, waiting for that other shoe to drop, waiting for somebody to say, I know what you're doing, you can't hide it anymore. And not being happy in my own skin until I found these rooms. And for me, being willing to put down that drink and finally recognizing that I don't have to do this anymore, and I don't have to live in that drama anymore. And it was hard to not look for that chaos, because I lived with the chaos in my life for so long. I didn't know how to live in that peace and serenity. It was very uncomfortable realizing that I had let the chaos go when I've got that serenity and that quiet in my life. And it's like I'm looking around saying, okay, where is it? I gotta find it. I gotta make it. And then finally realizing I can live in that peace. And then realizing I'm enjoying living in that peace without that chaos. And that was a gift that this program gave to me. And I'm going to stop with 7 seconds left. Thank you.
Damn, look at that. Obviously, I didn't catch the timer in time, though. It's your floor, folks. It's your floor.
I'll go ahead and go.
Hi, Shay. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Shayla. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I remember coming to AA and looking at this chapter, and I remember reading through the book, and just all the pronouns was, him and the husband, and then I found chapter 8 to the wives, and I was like, oh, this must be about, wives that are drinking, and whenever I started reading it, it did kind of make me upset, but then I remembered the time and I remember, thankfully they evolved, but I kind of see it both ways too. I never really lived with an alcoholic, but it makes me sad because I do read it and I do think about whenever I was married and just some of the things that I know that he went through. And he used to always tell me, if I did this stuff to you, it would never fly. And he was right. If he drank like I did, there was no way. I would not tolerate it at all. In the morning though, we did kiss and make up. And we just kept going as long as, we could. Yeah, there was some hard times, and I say hard times, but probably a lot of people would say otherwise, but a lot of things that we didn't talk about that we should have, that blew up toward the end. And like I said, I see it kind of from a different perspective, from his point of view. And, of course, my family and friends, whenever it said we seldom had friends at our home, never knowing how or when the man of the house would appear, that was I see that as I don't think that the people that came over to my home really knew what was going on. And, that's everywhere in life. I don't think that we really know the ins and outs of what goes on. But yeah, I do like this chapter. I like learning more about it, and I can relate a lot about it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay. Glad you are here. So we'll take a moment to meditate.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Linda.
Letter to Wars. It reminds me of the story when I watched that movie. Um, it's still on YouTube. It is about Bill W. You know, it's about him and his drinking and everything. I forgot what it's called. My name is Bill. I'm not sure. That might be it. But as we were reading in this chapter, and probably as we read more, it talked about the things that she went through, how he embarrassed her and he was drunk and he had these highfalutin dreams. He came to a job drunk, you know, a lot of things. And it just made me think about that movie. It really did. It made me think about that movie. You know, I had a father that was an alcoholic, but he never went to my mother's job drunk. But he did come home drunk, and I would hear her yelling at him. And I didn't understand what being drunk was. So when he was drunk, I just thought he was just being silly or annoying. I didn't know that he was drunk. And she would constantly yell at him. And now that I'm older, I understand he was very irresponsible. Um, his behavior wasn't erratic, but it wasn't responsible and it wasn't consistent. And when she told him to leave, he went from one place to another. He went all over the place. It was like a typical alcoholic, very reckless, very unmanageable. You know, he was married to my mother. He had kids by other people, you know. And I remember when my oldest brother died and my mother went over to the casket and she said, "These flowers are pretty. I wonder who they're from." So she went over to it and she looked at it and it said from Sadie. My mother hit the ceiling. She hit the ceiling because that was the woman that he had an affair with when he was married to her and he had a kid by somebody else. And she was like, "How dare this woman?" And she told her mother, my grandmother was there, because my grandma was real supportive of my mom when my oldest brother died. And I was only 10, so I really didn't know what was going on, you know. And that was my first introduction to death, you know, when my brother had died when I was 10. So the only thing I know is he was sleeping, he was still, and he wouldn't move. So I didn't really get it. I got it as I got older, but I really didn't understand it. And she turned it over and she just put from daddy, from whatever, my father, whatever name she called them. And then she said, "This is so humiliating." She said, "This is so humiliating." She said, "How dare this woman? How dare she?" You know, and she was really upset about that. And I remember after my brother died, because I remember I had asked my mother, I said, "Do men cry?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Men cry." Because I saw everybody crying at the funeral. And I saw her crying. I saw my mother cry for 5 years of her life after he died, my oldest brother. She just cried. She would be outside and she would just bust out crying. She, you know, her heart was really broken. But I remember her saying, she said, "Men do cry." She said, "Because I saw your father with a tear down his eye. He did cry at his son's funeral." And I remember when he asked her if he could move back in, could they get, and she said, "No." She said, "Oh, no, absolutely no." She says, "Tomford, this is it." And I remember when I was in a relationship with my son's father, I told him, I said, let me tell you this. I said, and I'll tell you this right now. When you leave, when I tell you to leave, you will never, ever come back. I said, you will not be some stupid man coming in and out of my life like what my father did. You know, and when things occur when you're a child, it sticks with you. It's like glue, it sticks with you, you know, and I've always been like that. Once I say it's done, it's done. It's done. You're not even getting a second chance. It is freaking done. You know, because I saw the hurt, I saw the arguments, I saw the insanity, and I was like, I don't want my kids to go through that. You know, and as my mother, her father was an alcoholic, so she married an alcoholic, and my father was an alcoholic, and yes, I got involved with an alcoholic and had kids by an alcoholic. and the pattern goes on. And I always tell my kids, make sure that this person doesn't drink. Make sure they don't hit you, and make sure they don't drink. Just make sure those two things. I said, and if they cheat, that's up to you whether you want to stay with them or go back to them. I said, but me, no. So certain things like, I don't know, maybe I'm sharing more as about the family afterwards. I don't know, maybe I'm more sharing on that, but this just made me really think about, that movie, My Name is Bill, and all the things that he did, the humiliating things he did. Then it made me think about my mom and the humiliation that he had to go through. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Gandalf. And I love the wheel, brother. I love the wheel. I just sent it to Trish. Come on in.
Yeah, my name is Donald, other known as Gandalf the Red Pickle. We use that wheel in other meetings. It's just to break up the monotony of waiting for somebody to do that. But Linda, just another thing too and stuff. Another movie is When Love Is Not Enough, which happens to be the true story about Lois Wilson, and that was with Winona Ryder. And I'm gonna watch that because I've never watched it before. We were supposed to watch it at one of my meetings, and it never came to fruition. Excuse me. But one of the things about Two Wives that everybody hates, a lot of it is, the women who hate it and stuff because it doesn't show everything that they had to go through, what they can expect. But it also shows the men, how we treated our women, how we treated our wives, our mothers, our daughters. And, it's just like chapter 4 or step 4, facing yourself. And my granddaughter's facing alcoholic problems too and stuff, and she just recently went back out, but her husband is actually gone off the deep end again, and he's trying to take her with him. And whenever she called me up the other day and stuff, we got the book out and started reading to wives, just so that we can see, what to expect, ins and outs, and try to help, cope with some of the problems that she's going to be seeing or has been through. And so, yeah, that's about all I've got. And I look forward to learning more through this this book study about that. So thank you very much. That's all I got for today. And I only used half my time, and I probably said 3 times as much as I should have. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Glad you are with us. Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. And I'm going to start with this. I can think of at least 5 relationships that I destroyed with my alcoholism. 5. And those were the really important, impactful relationships in my life. At least one of them was my first marriage and then long-term living together. So I get this, and coming from an alcoholic home, I see it from both perspectives. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the chapter. There's so much controversy in Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill was trying to be a man. It should have been written by a woman. It should have been written by Lois. All of that controversy. Does any of that controversy really have any effect or impact on the sentiment of this chapter? Probably not. So here's the great important significance of it. From this page that we started on tonight, page 104 to page 116 and a half, is it gives us the alcoholic's perspective, talking to other alcoholics and non-alcoholics. And a non-alcoholic can't give me an alcoholic perspective. Only an alcoholic can give me. And as we go through these pages, it's gonna talk about not only the things that we have done as alcoholics, but the ways we are likely to react when we are hit with something like that state of, I want to put this in a kind and loving way, of indifference in the home. Okay, and the book tells us how we're going to react. So from page 116 and a half and to the end of the chapter, it begins speaking from the perspective and the point of view from the wives. Now here's what I believe. If it would have been written by one woman, it would be one woman's perspective. But the kind of research that Bill Wilson did, I honestly have to believe that he interviewed some of the wives of the first 100 to get what their experience and what their perspective was, so that he could pass it on through the words in this book. That is just absolutely so logical to me. And then what happens through those pages is they begin to give the wives a spiritual solution for themselves of how to take care of themselves. And these are pre-Al-Anon chapters. And the reason that Rick Walsh and I always referred to these three chapters as the lost chapters is because so many people say, I ain't got a wife, I don't need that chapter. I ain't got a family, I don't need that chapter. I don't have a damn job, don't want one either. I don't need that chapter either. And yet, all three of these chapters that we will be studying are all about me, Jamie, practicing a spiritual program of recovery in all of my affairs and the places where it affects me the most. In my home, in my relationships with my children, in my relationships with work. I broke a hell of a lot of people while I'm out there. But this allows me to take on a new understanding and a new perspective. You know, we can talk about the language of, oh, well, they hated women in the 1940s. That's all a bunch of bullcrap. Historically, many women in the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous for one simple reason. Because if a woman was identified as an alcoholic, she generally lost her home, she lost her husband, the husband divorced her, she lost custody of her children, and was generally permanently institutionalized. So what we really have to understand, folks, is we have to understand the dynamics of the social climate of the time of the 1930s. Has nothing to do with Alcoholics Anonymous. And if we pay attention to the forewords in our book, and we pay attention to I'm going to run over for just a second, my apologies. And we pay attention to the history of our book, what we see is we see the growth in the fellowship of women. So by the time the second edition, there was almost a quarter or a third of women in Alcoholics Anonymous. Today, it's probably 50% or maybe even better. And that's okay, because there is hope and there is healing for all. This chapter helps to give me a better understanding of those I have done damage to as well. So love the chapter, hate the chapter, it doesn't matter to me. But one thing I can promise you is that if you stick around with us in this study every week for 8 weeks, your understanding of this chapter will change. Thank you. Xavier, come on in, brother. Good to see you.
Hey, good evening. Xavier, recovered alcoholic. Happy to be here. Great to see everyone. Last time we did the study and got to this chapter, I was very resistant and I was very vocal about my resistance. But I also made a conscious decision to choose to see these, because I really believe it is a choice, to see, for my perception to change. And what I see today compared to last time we went through was, I see a few things. I see a chapter that, on a very personal level, is forcing me, and I say force, probably not the right word, but is allowing me to consider how my alcoholism hurt other people, or maybe even affected other people, good and bad. And I look back on the steps, and going back to steps 4 and 5, I get to start to look at my mistakes and put pen to paper. And when I start to address that, the alcohol per se is an effect, but the actual problem, the cause, is self-centeredness manifested in all these different ways. And when I start to look at my mistakes, I start to see, oh my God, I actually affect other people. And then 8 and 9, I get to really hit that home, with a list and doing amends. I think of my ex-wife when I was a young man, a little out of the Navy. And I remember many years later, she left me for my best friend in the Navy after we were married. And I use that as one of my excuses to almost drink myself to death for many years in Chicago. And I remember some amends I did when I really got into inventory. And one of the things I saw was I would have left me way before she did. And because my alcoholism was so bad when we were married, that's not what she signed up for. And to start to see like the absolute destruction that my alcoholism caused was eye-opening. If I fast forward to today, the emotional sobriety day by day is never ending. Every single day I get to see myself self-centeredness and how it affects others, especially with a wife and children, and people I get to work with every day. And it's a constant opportunity for growth. And even if I'm not drinking, untreated alcoholism, can run rampant pretty quickly. And what I see is I can see that manifesting with the way I'm treating others. And I can see that in steps 10 and 11, and calling my sponsor when I'm in a lot of pain. And then the opposite, when I'm on the beam, when I'm doing the deal and I'm really closer to my higher power, it's also really cool to kind of be in the flow. And one of the benefits, besides the way how I feel, is how I get to show up in the world on a daily basis to my family, to my wife, to my children, to my friends, to my coworkers, to my clients. And that's really a gift of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm grateful, and I choose to be grateful for, if I consider gratitude a verb and gratitude an action, I choose to be gracious for this chapter. And I suspect one of the reasons I was probably resistant to it is because my self-centeredness doesn't want to consider how it affects others. And when I'm starting to learn, 5.5 years sober, maybe a little over 5 years, I'm starting to learn that I have a long way to go. Like there's a lot of room for improvement, is a nice way to put it. And that's it's nice to know that I don't know. It's nice to be humble, and it's nice to realize that I'm right where I belong, and I'm grateful to be here. And so I'll keep coming back, and I'll keep learning, and I'll keep learning from these readings, and I'll keep applying it to my life today and where I'm at today and my level of awareness today. And when I have a lot of resistance, especially, I'm grateful I get to talk to you guys about it. I'm grateful that we get to chew on these words, and I'm grateful that I get to talk to my sponsor about it, who is a lot wiser than I am. That's all I got. Thank you so much.
I don't know, brother. I know your sponsor. He's out there in Looney Tunesville. Thank you. Glad you're with us. Larry, come on in.
I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, I've destroyed a lot of relationships too. Three three marriages. I have destroyed two in alcoholism. One while in Alcoholics Anonymous sober. So, I've seen, you don't have to be drinking to destroy a relationship if you're not, your alcoholism or the disease of alcoholism can still show up. And in my very early years, that's, it did. And, but, I, I remember my first wife left me for one of her coworkers, and I just remember, man, thinking to myself at the time, how could this woman leave? I could not figure out a reason why a woman would want to leave. you know? And I was an alcoholic, but most of my drinking was done. It was gone away. I traveled all over the country for work, and so I figured since I wasn't directly, involving her in my drinking, that this shouldn't affect her, and but I've said it before. I'd get home and I would have 1 foot inside the house and 1 foot outside, looking for the very next job that I was going to. I couldn't stay at home. I was never happy at home because I couldn't wait to get away so I could drink and be what I was, because I really was living 2 lives, and it caught up with me. I was, I would get angry. I would get sharp. I was unhappy. I was, and it all showed. I had the classic symptoms, and so anyway, my I could my second wife. I didn't marry her very long, but she got tired fast. At the end, I just embarrassed her. I started drinking and drugging so heavily that at the end we were at a very. She was an entertainer. She made a lot more money than I did. She was actually supporting me. All I was doing was working and supporting me, and I got to where I couldn't work because of an operation, and we was at a family thing she was putting on, not a family, but friends, and mashed potatoes were being passed around the table, and I passed out, and I about drowned it in the bowl of mashed potatoes. She was just embarrassed about stuff like that I was doing, and so she got rid of me. And the whole thing is, here 14 years later, I feel like I have learned that what it is to truly enjoy a woman. And part of this is this chapter. This chapter has taught me a lot about being a responsible man, and how to live a sober life in a type of relationship or friendship. I couldn't be even a good friend, and I'm thankful for this chapter. But it took this chapter to show me what a real person that I was not, but I thought I was. That's all I got.
Thank you, Larry. Glad you are here, my friend. Well, folks, we are at the top of the hour, so are there any burning desires? Okay, Alyssa, would you like to come in and read our closing page, please?
Attention to the person on the board. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. Sorry, my earbud died, so I couldn't. I apologize, guys. Alright, from page 164 of our big book. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service tonight. Always a joy and honor to serve with you. And folks, we've got a real special way of closing out here in Primary Purpose. I always feel it's important to close with this. Our disease is so fatal, and there will be 263 alcoholics who die in this country tonight of untreated alcoholism, 95,000 throughout the year and 3 million worldwide. We're all here because somebody prayed for us. So let's take a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering, and we will close out in our traditional pickle style fashion of the virtual circle up, and here's your moment. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Keep coming back. It works, but only if you work it. So work it because you're worth it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for helping me.
Hey, good night, everybody. Love
Peace,
y'all.
Katie.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Everyone.
Have a good